Today we're going to talk a little bit about the business side of food photography. We're going to talk about how to find clients, how to define clients, and all kinds of stuff that is a little bit boring and maybe you feel it's unnecessary, but it's really very crucial if you want to succeed in the world of food photography. My name is Anya Burgar, I'm a food photographer and I'm here to teach you tips and tricks of food photography, and today also a little bit about the business side of food photography. But today I'm not going to be alone. There's someone very special joining me. I have learned so much from her. She's sharing lots of tips about the business side of photography on her website and on Instagram, and I'm gonna share her links down below. Now let's see who it is. Hi Fanette, it's so nice to have you here. Fanette and I have been friends on Instagram for a while, and it's really nice to see you in person as well. So
I know it's been so long, and we've been talking through Instagram, and it's just so fun to finally get to talk to you in real, for real.
Yeah, definitely. So for everyone who is not familiar with you yet, please tell us a little bit more about you.
Of course. My name is Fanette. I am a food and product photographer. I am originally from France, but I'm currently located in the US. I have been doing food and product photography for 7 or 8 years. I don't remember. And I started recently also sharing some tips about the business side of food photography, because I really struggled with it when I started, and I was lucky enough to have a lot of people help me along the way. So now that I've figured out a few things, I'm trying to share it with my followers over at Frenchly Photography. That's kind of where I hang out.
Yeah, I always like to read everything on your blog, you know, your email when it comes. I'm probably the first one to read it. And also on Instagram, your stories, your posts are always so inspiring and full of advice. So I really enjoy following you.
I'm glad to have you. Thank you so much.
So today we said we're going to talk a little bit about finding ideal clients and a little bit about how to reach out to clients. So first, and probably something that most of us when we started out were struggling with, is how do you actually narrow down on your ideal client?
So that's a good question, and I think it's a step that a lot of people skip, in my opinion. Is before you can figure out who your ideal client is, I think you should try to figure out what your ideal business looks like. And so that means trying to figure out the type of work that you want to do. Do you want to work in studio? Do you want to work on location? Do you want to work with a big team? Do you want to work alone? So there's many ways that you can be a food photographer. And I think the first step to figuring out who your ideal client is to figure out what your ideal business looks like. And I think because of social media, you can actually look at what other people do and think that this is the right way to do things. But I don't think there's a right way. And I think there's just so many ways that you can be a food photographer that you need to take a minute, set up some goals, figure out what your ideal business looks like, or figure out what you want to do and how you want to do. And then once you have figured out if you want to work with big brands, small brands, whatever it is, then you can start looking at defining and niching down on your ideal client. But I think a lot of people forget the step of trying to figure out what your ideal business looks like before your ideal client, I think.
Yeah, that's definitely good advice. So you have narrowed down your business, and now you need to reach out to clients and you need to know who to reach out to. So you need to find actually brands that fit you, that you would enjoy working with, they will enjoy working with you, they'll come back to you. How do you know how to find these kinds of clients?
So I think there's a few things that you can do. First of all, you can look at what you've done in the past, the types of clients that you've worked with, and figure out which ones were a good fit and which ones were not. Because I remember when I started out, I had some clients that were definitely not a good fit. The projects were not a good fit, but yet I was still reaching out to the same type of clients. I think somebody was said once that the definition of insanity is trying the same things and hoping for a different result. Well, that was exactly what I was doing. I was reaching out to the same type of clients and being disappointed because the project were not exciting for me. So I think we need to take some time to think about what we want to do and look at our past experience. And whenever we finish a job for a client, take a minute to think about what went well, what didn't go well, what we enjoyed and what we didn't, and why we did or did not enjoy the things that we did. So I think there's that's the first thing, is try to be more mindful of what we've done already and how we can either reproduce it or not. And then I also think that photography, like working with a client, is one of my followers posted that the other day on one of my posts, which I thought was really funny. She said that working with clients is like a first date. You have to have the alchemy. And I'm like, yes, it is actually like a first date. So I think it is very important, once you have kind of figured out that the project is of interest to you and the client is potentially a good fit, that you actually get them on the phone and that you talk to them. And that once you have that contact with the person, that you see whether there is a good feeling between the two of you, because it's going to be, it's a work relationship, but you also have to go back and forth. It's a human relationship as well. So if from your first call you already notice that you don't understand each other too well, or it's awkward or whatever, then maybe it's not a good fit. And also, I have a few things that for me are red flags. So you need to figure out what are your red flags. But for me, a client that doesn't really know what they want, or tells me, you're the photographer, you know what to do, I'll let you decide. I don't take those kinds of clients, because ultimately, if they don't know what they want, they may not be happy with what I give them. I want to make sure that the client knows what they're looking for, that they've done the work before, that they know their audience, they know who they're catering to, and therefore I can come up with something that will fit their audience. So there's a few things like that you can start thinking about, but I think getting them on the phone is super important. And I remember when I started, getting them on the phone was just giving me the sweats, like, oh my God, talking to a client on the phone is just so nerve-wracking. But it's very important, because it's people want to work with people. They don't just want photographers, they want to work with people. So I think it's super important to get them on the phone and talk to them and see if the connection is there. I think it's going to help you have good fitting clients.
And probably also, if you've done like different kinds of projects, it would probably also be easier to like narrow down what kinds of project, what kind of clients, you'll kind of be able to hear from the phone call if they're fit or not, because in the beginning it's kind of hard to do that, right?
It is. And so you have to try different things when you're just starting. You have to try, and if there's a potential project and you're not sure if it's going to be a good fit, just try. What's the worst that can happen? It's not going to be a great collaboration, and you just don't do it again. Find something else.
Exactly. And you also need you also need to build your portfolio, right? How important would you say is having a portfolio versus having social media?
So for me, the portfolio is the first thing that you should work on. It's really the first thing that you should present to your clients, that presents your work in a very professional and curated way. It's where you should really show your best work. I think social media is important for creating connections, and I use it a lot to create connections with brands. I interact on their account, comment on their posts or on their stories, which I think is much more powerful than commenting on posts. Interacting with them, talking with them through DMs. but I don't use my Instagram as a portfolio per se. Well, I kind of do in the meaning that if they want to see the work that I'm up to right now, they can see it on Instagram. But I always use Instagram and all social media to direct them to my portfolio, which is where like my best work is. And also the work that I think would be a good fit for them, because I create my portfolio to reflect the work that I want to do and therefore the kind of clients that I want to work with. So I want, when they go to my portfolio, I want them to see images that they could see for themselves, and they see and they work, wow, this is amazing. I want to work with this person. But then I use Instagram just for connections, because like I said, I think it's humans working with humans. So you need to make connections. And something that we don't do enough in our Instagrams is probably showing our faces and telling our stories and, talking about our process and how we work. Because as photographers, we like to be hiding behind the camera. We don't like to be in front of it. But I think it's very important because it kind of creates that connection already with the clients that potentially come and check your Instagram.
Yeah, I think it's very powerful to show your face every once and then, even, I mean, not just for your Instagram followers, but also for clients to see that there's actually a real person who's doing all this beautiful photography.
Absolutely. And if you can, do some stories where you talk to the camera as well. I know it's super uncomfortable. I don't enjoy doing them, but I think it's so important. It's so important. It creates a connection. The video part of it is really they feel like they know you. Like I look up to my the food photographers that I follow for a long time, and I feel like I know them because they're on video all the time. So I think it really creates a very personable connection. So I think if you can do a little bit of video, it doesn't hurt.
Yeah, definitely. But you don't use Instagram to reach out to clients.
I typically don't. I would do it potentially with small or local brands, because I know that then there's a chance that the person who's running the Instagram might be the same person that hires the photographer. But when you're working with bigger brands, it's usually a different department altogether. So I would probably just email them. But I will still create a connection through Instagram and use Instagram to kind of have them recognize my name and be aware of me. But I don't typically use it for pitching purposes. However, I know some of my students have done so and were successful with it. I think it's more a personal choice. I find for me, email and LinkedIn work better.
So I know for me, it was a big struggle, and it still sometimes is. When you want to reach out to a brand and you realize that you only have the info email or the contact form on their page, what do you do? How do you find that person who will actually read an email?
So there's a few things that you can do. I personally started using LinkedIn a few months ago, almost a year ago now, I think. And so I reach out to brands directly on LinkedIn for different reasons, because first, it saves me a lot of time where I don't have to, look for the emails. It's a real time saver. But also because I find that people get a lot of email and they tend to don't have time, ignore them. But LinkedIn is really a professional network, and people really feel like they have to be professional on the platform. So they tend to answer the messages on LinkedIn more than they would emails. And also they get less messages on there. So I have been reaching out using LinkedIn for a while, and it's really working for me. However, LinkedIn is a funny platform, and if you don't pay for premium, it can be a little tricky to reach out to people. You can do so by asking them to connect and then sending a message along the connection request, but then you're really limited in terms of character. So I actually have a premium account, and I think it's totally worth it. But if you don't want to reach out through LinkedIn, then Google is your best friend. You have to put on your detective hat, and you have to go figure out how to find the email address. So what I used to do is I used to go on LinkedIn to find the name of the person that I wanted to reach out, and then go on Google and try to find the email address for that person. Now, sometimes you will not find the email address for that person, but you will find the email address for somebody else. And for many companies, they have like a structure of the email. So it's like first names, initial, last. So you can kind of figure it out this way quite often. So that's something I have used in the past. And also I know that there are tools now that exist called LinkedIn email extractors or something like that. Some of them are free, and you can use them. And if you type the name, they will go and fetch the email address from LinkedIn for you. So I haven't tried them yet because I use LinkedIn, but I've recommended to some of my students, and it seems to work. So I would Google, I think it's LinkedIn email extractors, something like that. And there's a bunch of tools that can do that.
Okay, awesome. That's great. I've never heard of that.
Yeah, no, that's fairly new. So yeah.
Yeah.
And then also, if you're looking to reach out to bigger brands or agencies, there's some listings that you can sign up for. They're paid, so you pay. It's between $50 and $60 a month, and they give you access to email addresses of agencies. And so those are like, for the US, you have Agency Access or Yoda List, which are the two biggest. And then there's a bunch for Europe, like Bikini Listing, or I'm blanking out, Production Paradise, I think, is for Europe as well. And those, you pay a monthly fee, and then you get access to the agencies that have signed with those listing companies, and then you can reach out directly to the people in charge. And you can also actually see exactly which brands they're working with, so that can be super useful. So that's another thing that I do when I want to work with bigger brands.
Yeah, awesome. So we know who to write to, but now we have to write something. And I think that's like always a problem. Like, what do you write when you reach out to someone for the first time?
So I don't think you need to reinvent the wheel when you reach out to someone. It's just, for me, it needs to be short and sweet, because those people are busy. They get like, I'm not the only photographer that is emailing them. So I make sure that I keep it straight to the point, and I focus on their brand and not on my work. So if I will start by giving them a compliment that, I've been following their brand, or I've been using their brand for a long time. I love what they're doing, blah, blah, blah. And then I say, I'm a food and product photographer. I'm located here. I would love to work with you. It doesn't have to be super elaborate, just short and sweet, and make sure that you talk about them more than you talk about you. And when you talk about you, you tell them how you can help them. So I think that's the main thing. But don't write a whole paragraph. They don't have time for that. Just make it short and sweet, and then make sure that you follow up, because a lot of people send one email and then they come back to me and they say, I don't understand. I didn't get an answer. Did you follow up? No, I sent one email. That's not enough. They're busy people. You need to follow up several times. They are just it's a matter of, it's a numbers game. So you just have to keep trying and make sure that you're like, hey, I'm still here.
So you'd recommend that first, when you reach out, it's just like a general introduction, not so in depth. You don't really kind of want to get them some project ideas or something, so that's safe for later.
So I typically stay pretty general in the introduction, and then I follow up a couple of times where I stay general. And if I really want to work with them, then I have a few strategies that I have, where for example, I have a Google alert set up for the brand that I really want to work with. And so every time something comes up in the press, then I'm informed. So if they have a new product or a new launch or a new campaign, then I'm informed right away. And then I can use that in the follow-up email saying, hey, I see that you've launched this product. This is awesome. I would love to blah, blah, blah. Or just make sure that they understand that you're interested in their brand, and that you care. And I don't typically send pitch ideas, like campaign ideas, because there's a lot of photographers out there, and I've seen it where you send an idea and they take it and they hire another photographer to do it. So that's kind of like, I don't really like that. However, I've noticed that more and more magazines ask now that you actually send a article idea or a theme or something like that. So it really depends who you reach out to, but in general, I keep it pretty general, and I don't, unless I have an idea, unless I came up with a great idea that I think would be great for this brand and only for this brand, and I'm excited about it, then I will share it, but I don't rack my brain trying to figure out something to come up with. So it's there's many different, I don't think there's one good way to do it. I think it's also depending on how much you want to work with that brand. Like if it's your absolute ideal brand, then do whatever you can to win them over for sure. And if it means sending them a pitch for an idea that you had, by all means, go ahead.
Awesome. I think we've learned so much from you today. Thank you so much, Fanette. I'm pretty sure my viewers really love this, all of this advice.
I'm glad. And also you have to, so one more thing that I want to say is that I know pitching is very scary for people, but you have to get out of the mindset that you're begging for work. It's not like you're asking for work. You're creating a commercial relationship with another business. And the person on the other side of the email is a business. They're expecting to be pitched to. It's part of their job, and they're not bothered by you pitching to them. So stop feeling bad about it. Just do it. And the worst that can happen is they say no, and then you find another brand to pitch to. So just go do it.
Just recently, I was shooting for a local restaurant here, and I actually pitched to them. And then they told me when I was with them at the photo shoot that they were actually searching for a food photographer, and they didn't know where to look to. And so if I didn't write to them, they would be asking themselves, how could we find a food photographer? So I pitched to them, and they answered to my first email. So
exactly, you're there providing a service to help them. And sometimes they're really happy that you do send them the email. And sometimes they don't need a photographer right now, so they won't answer to you right away. But if you keep following up and being there for them when they need, then the day they need a photographer, they will remember, I remember she sent me an email. Maybe I'll reach out to her. So just be patient and get out there. The worst that could happen is that they say no.
Yeah. Exactly. And they might say no at one point and then remember you and get back to you at a later time. It's happened to probably both of us.
Exactly. So, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome, Fanette. Thank you so much for being here. It was really lovely having you.
Thank you so much for having me. It was really fun. And I hope we could do that again sometime.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope this was so fun and insightful. It definitely was for me. If you want to see videos like this in the future, don't forget to click the subscribe button, and please give me a thumbs up if you've liked this video.